Hi, thanks for tuning in to Gabbing with Girlfriends. And my girlfriend today is Jeff Scheel Again. Again, meaning that's not part of his name. Again, meaning it's my second time having him on. And I'm excited for a part two. I think part twos are more fun because you've already got that kind of podcast connection going on. And I'm dying to pick up where we left off because I think we had a really good chat before. But there was so much more to say. I forget how much Jeff can talk, which is awesome because he definitely has something to say and always has something to say. And I'm glad that that's never changed because it was a really good quality to have. Unlike me, who tends to be a little bit afraid of public speaking or speaking, period. So anyway, I'm excited to have him on again. And I think he'll be joining in any second from now. So I'm quickly trying to remember where we did leave off so I know what kind of things to pick his brain on. There's one thing in particular I'm dying to ask him because it's made me curious since he and I spoke, and I didn't want to cheat and call or text him saying, what were you talking about when you said blah, blah, blah. So that's going to be my first question for him. So come on, Jeff. Let's, okay. Hi.
How goes
How
it?
are you?
Good.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah. I was up in St. Louis. I'd been up in Missouri for a little while and decided to stay. And so yeah, had a good time. Flew Willow up. So
That's nice. That's
yeah.
nice. So you're dealing with some family stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah. So that's been an ongoing thing for a while, but that's gonna be over with soon. So yeah.
So before I ask you my question from our last chat, I have to ask you about your daughter's dance.
Oh, yeah. So last year she went with a guy that she'd been dating for a little while.
Dating?
Yeah, I know, right? And then they stopped dating, and this year she just went with a bunch of friends. Ironically, she danced this year. Last year she didn't dance. So they went out and so she had a really good time.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah, sweet.
Was it a school thing?
Yeah, they're winter
Nice.
formal.
Oh, nice. Did you get to chaperone?
No, I trust her.
Oh, oh well. Okay, I have
She
to
wouldn't
ask
want
you
me
this.
around.
No, I'm
Okay.
sure. I am sure.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. I have to ask you this because we talked about it last time, and I've wanted to know the answer since last time, but I didn't want to cheat and call and ask you. So I saved it for this. What were the two voting issues that I took part in?
Two voting issues?
Yeah, I thought you said that I would cast or my vote could be the tiebreaker, and that it
I
happened
know
twice.
for certain
Mhm.
you're probably a tiebreaker in, say, probably when we got the offer from Atlantic, and I guess it would have been Viacom. I don't know whoever did the Escape from LA soundtrack, and we got a pretty big offer from them to be the single, and it was, I think it was maybe it was too much money to pass up on, I think. And and in hindsight, you get the money, but you don't know what the repercussions of all those things are. So we took the money. And I remember where we were at. Even I was in a hotel in Pittsburgh, and we were trying to sort all this out. And anybody who doesn't know what's going on, we got offered the single for the Escape from LA soundtrack, and so they were going to do a video,
which was a sequel to
Escape from New York, and it was a horrible movie. And I don't know if you have to remember going to the premiere.
Oh my gosh, I do. I do. Oh, I absolutely do.
And because we were out with the Sex Pistols at the time, so we had to fly back. I think we played that night, and then we took we played in front of the Chinese theater that night to a crowd that could care less, or I think we were annoying people more than anything. And so then
I don't remember that part. I must have blocked that out.
Yeah, well, I think it was just one of those things, like, they had us playing, but I don't know that I think Michael Stipe from REM was there, and I think he just like walked by, like shaking his head, like what
like, why are you doing this?
Right, why are you doing this to my ears? And so but we flew back to play in New York. Maybe we had a press day. I don't know. The next day, it was one of those, wake up at 7 a.m. and then go to MTV and do something with Matt Pinfield, and then do press all day. And but yeah, it was pretty cool. But that was one of the, okay, so that was one. Two, I mean, there were a lot of things that we maybe voted on. One story I do tell about you is,
I'm scared.
No, it's a good story. It was, we were in Stockholm, and we had this remix record that TVT wanted to release. And I remember getting, we were in the dressing room, and back then you had one, this is 1997, so we weren't all walking around with cell phones, especially cell phones that we could speak to people internationally. I think you might have been in England at the time. I don't think you were. I know that you were in England because you had just been out with the band on a couple dates. And so I think that was another one. We were trying to come up with a name for this remix record, and I don't think anybody was really too happy about it at the time. And because they all of a sudden, they had all these remixes, and you'd kind of gotten on to them about spending a bunch of money, and we weren't even being consulted. They would just go, "Hey, here, Joe Blow, here's $5,000 for a remix," or whatever. And I think, and even at one point, Al Jorgensen did a remix, and you had somehow negotiated that TVT was going to pay the entire lump without it going back against our account, because it was like $30,000 for this remix that, to our knowledge, we know that maybe at the time Al was in the building, but I don't know how much he had to do with the remix.
Yeah.
And
back then, I mean, $30,000 is a lot of money today, but back then it was a whole lot of money.
Yeah, for a remix. So anyway, so I remember, I sort of remember you being in the middle of us coming up with a name for this remix record, and then we had to have, like, that day. It wasn't like something that we had to, like, hey, you guys take a week. And for whatever reason, because I don't think initially, I don't know that TVT, I think they'd done all these things, and they said, hey, we're going to do this record, but we'll throw you a bone and you guys can name the record. It was because they had kind of planned all this behind our backs, and then,
of course,
and then you catch wind of it, and hey, we can do this, but we have to have a name, like, before you walk on stage in 15 minutes. And it was one of those deals. So, but you were involved in a lot of crazy stuff, and I can't even imagine. I mean, you managed several acts, and I don't know, we were probably, at times we were pretty tame, and at times we had some pretty severe issues. So I don't know how we rank on the.
No, I think it balanced out. I think tame and severe, right in the middle, you were normal. You were fun. You were fun. And yeah, overall, I think that you guys were, were tame. I don't think that you were ever, I mean, there were a handful or less of incidents that probably shouldn't have happened or should have been whatever, but overall, you guys are so gracious on the road, and so relatively humble, and good, hardworking guys. Not too white glove. Well, not all four of you were too white glove anyway.
Oh, who could you be talking about? Yeah, I was, yeah. Well, I was so much older by the time things happened. I say older, I was older than the other guys by a few years, and I appreciated it so much. I had my moments.
Yeah,
Um,
you did.
um, you know, you were there one night when I had one of my moments,
In
and it was
London,
no, it wasn't in London. That was another
that
moment.
was a moment.
That was
That
definitely
was
a
definitely
moment.
a moment.
Um, I don't remember exactly. I don't remember. It wasn't a major market in Germany, but I had I had destroyed um, some lighting, um, and you had to jump in, and then I had to individually apologize to band members and lighting directors and tour
Do you remember
managers. And
why?
why I had to apologize.
No, why you had a moment.
Well, because I do. The band, Skunk and Nancy, they're a great band. And they didn't, we were playing a venue that night that just didn't give us very much room. And one, and two, they were playing the Brit Awards like in a couple days. And so they were rehearsing this song for the Brit Awards. And so we didn't get a sound check, and things were going poorly that night. And it wasn't a crowd thing. It was on stage, things weren't going well. I don't think people really knew, but the band always knows, and you try to fight through it. And at the end of the show, I kept tripping over this light. It was right in center, downstage center. And so the last song, the Thank You Good Night, I was wearing boots, and I just decided to destroy this parkan.
Are you sorry today?
Yeah, of course.
Did
There's
you?
lots of things I'm sorry about. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy, that person. I look back, and at times I did some things. In fact, I was having this discussion not too long ago with someone. I was like, I did some stuff that in hindsight, looking back, you wish you could be this version, the version, like, I wish
A
I could
grown
be
up,
this
a
version,
mature grown up.
right, of myself, and go through all of that. And not that I treated people poorly, but sometimes I did. And sometimes I treated other bands poorly. And I think that was, as I look back, and it wasn't like we treated openers poorly, or it wasn't anything like that. We got into stupid rivalries. Maybe you and I have talked about this. One of my big regrets, and something we could have done in 1998, especially we weren't selling as many records, we could have called the Stabbing Westward guys and said, hey, let's go out, and we're going to, we'll play 60 minutes in front of you every night, and we'll fill decent sized venues, and and play to a lot more people. And we just never did, because we had this weird rivalry with them.
Yeah, and so a weird rivalry, and people, no matter how, and I know we talked about this before, no matter how many times you say leave your ego at home, back then people struggled with leaving their ego behind. So this rivalry, this ego thing, and not just the band, because I know at times, I thought there were things that you guys could have and probably should have done, but I thought, that's below them. Or so it was my ego for you, not my ego for me, but my ego for you. And I wish some of that would have been different, because I think I should have really appreciated the baby steps and the growing pains that you guys should have experienced that you really didn't get to experience, from going from not being a band to having a single charting on the radio overnight, virtually.
and
So
not being a live unit either, and then going
yeah,
from never playing to being on the road almost 2 years.
yeah. So stuff happens. Do you know what I can't remember? And I remembered this for a long time. So it must be an age thing. or something that I've chosen to block out that doesn't even have to do with me. But you remember, I think we were in Holland and Doug did something that was, yeah, something happened.
And Doug will be watching this and go, "What did I do?"
No, between the dressing room and stage.
No, because
He couldn't figure out what to wear as he's walking on stage or
I
something.
turned to him. It was one of those, and I forgot. We've been playing. Maybe it was like Nijmegen or something, and we did one of those Spinal Tap walk through, from the dressing room, because we're the opener. So we're in a broom closet somewhere, and so we're walking through the venue, and we get all the way to about where we're going to go on stage. And I turned to Doug and I said, "You're going to wear that?"
That's it. That's exactly it. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, he was an easy target for that kind of stuff. And it just because, well, he cared, he cared.
I remember
about
he
it.
wanted to go back and change. I'm like, no, you're going on in 4.5 seconds. You're
Right.
wearing this.
Mhm.
I remember. Oh my God, how funny is that?
Yeah, because you came over. The first date that we played was at Paradiso in Amsterdam, and you came and you kind of, because we were staying in Amsterdam for the 3 dates that we played in Holland, or in the Netherlands, because you could just drive. So you just
Easy.
drive to the gig and come back to Amsterdam and stay that night. And it was like, I guess it would have been like playing, I don't know, you're playing, you're staying in Jefferson City, Missouri, and going to play Columbia, and then Kansas City, and then St. Louis, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so so you were like, you kind of hung out with us for the first part, I think, kind of get our, which is crazy to think about. That was the first time I'd ever been over there, and I was still jet lagged, and it was all that stuff. I'd never experienced that. So I'm waiting for I'm getting up at 4 a.m, and I can't sleep, and I'm waiting for the restaurant to open at 6 so I can eat breakfast. And then you stayed for a couple dates, and we played Brussels, and then Tommy Serg flew over to let us know that he was leaving TVT to go to MCA. And then, of course, everybody left. Rick Kelly and I got left at the venue. You guys went off to have dinner, and Rick and I had dinner by ourselves in Brussels.
Did we leave you on purpose, or did you leave, or did you want to separate?
No, I don't know what had happened. Rick and I got left behind somehow, and you guys took off, and we didn't know where you went. And of course, making I think Rick had a cell phone that he could have called you, but back then making a cell phone call was, who knows how much it would have cost. So we're just like, we just walked over and had dinner. But
is that right, that people used to tour without cell phones?
Yeah, I mean, we had one in '96, but guys in the band didn't have one till '98.
Okay, remember when Kurt got left at a truck stop between Chicago and St. Louis?
I do remember that. And
we had a cell phone?
No, he used a payphone.
Oh.
He called collect or something from a payphone, and called Bonnie.
Oh, that's right. And then Bonnie called the bus. So somebody in the bus.
Yeah, Bonnie called. Yeah, and then we turned around and went back and got him. So luckily, he was the only person that ever happened to. I didn't,
and luckily, I wasn't fired afterwards. Close. Oh my God. So, so if you could go back, I always like to play that game. If you could go back and relive your life all over again, what would you do differently? But not your life, because that would probably be a 12-hour episode, or 12 episodes of things that we both would change just personally. But as far as the band goes, differently if you were doing it today. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I've thought about that a little bit. I try not to, you try, at this point in my life, I'm lucky it ever happened. And I look at it that way. But do I go back and say, okay, what could I have done differently? I don't know that it's anything about one particular, there's lots of things that, I wish that I wouldn't have been that person necessarily. But like, as far as a big thing, I think I think I would have listened to my gut a little bit more. Not business wise, not, anything to do with, relationships with you or the label or any of that stuff, but more of like, I think we got into doing the second record and we were just lost because we had been sort of, I think we were looking to sort of, instead of defining ourselves as a band and who we thought we were, we got confused by all the outside opinions. And not just, I'm not talking about labels and you or anybody else, because you never really got involved in any of that stuff. Label people would say silly things to you that never made any sense. But, and, I can't say label people, certain people at the label. I'm not going to lump everybody in. But I think the band lost its way because we were playing shows like, we're opening for Korn one night at a, or we're, and then especially as we got in between records, we started playing shows. I was thinking about this crazy show that we played in Phoenix. We went on before Megadeth and after the Misfits.
Well, was that a radio show?
Yes.
So we had no control.
Right.
It was just one of those things that,
right,
when you're offered back then and still today, if you're offered a radio show, it's a yes.
Oh yeah, and especially in a market like Phoenix, which
Right,
the band did, the band meant something there, and so
Megadeth. That's funny. I don't even remember that. I remember No Doubt. Wasn't that Phoenix?
That was the very first radio show we ever played. That was the night before. Was the night before Super Bowl 30.
Oh.
Yeah, and so TVT.
How do you remember this?
Because I was a Dallas Cowboys fan. I got to go to Super Bowl 30. And it was the first time we ever played like, on a bill with, we'd played to that point. We'd played.
So that was definitely
4 or 5 shows
that
with
was...
Sister Machine Gun and
a
couple of our own shows, but we'd never played a show like that.
No, this was a big show,
and we played early in the day.
And that's okay. That's what you did.
The Verve Pipe went on right before us. They opened with a song called "Cup of Tea." I remember that.
Oh my God.
I'll never forget that. And we played, and who else was on? No Doubt was on that. Deep Blue Something was on that show as well, which is really funny because we get to Paul Nugent, managing the Nixons. But so yeah, that was a big deal. But in '97, all of a sudden we were playing all these, like '96, we were playing festivals for alternative stations, and so they're very eclectic. And there was they had all these different pop band, a ska band, us, and then in '97 we start playing all these like rock shows. We got to play. We played Rockstock in Tampa. We went on right before Motley Crue.
You figure.
Right. And it was like the last 3 bands of the day was like, it was us, then Motley Crue. And on some of those festivals, you get on a late slot. And then it was Typo Negative.
Oh, wow.
So I think, we didn't we saw how those audiences were responding to us. And so we kind of we started kind of leaning into that a little bit. I say that, but Perversion's this very weird, at times, super electronic record, because we'd come back from Europe and we're listening to, we'd gotten all these records while we were over there, and we'd come back and, the Prodigy's getting ready to break in the United States, big. And we actually got the Point in Trouble. They played a song off Fat of the Land, and they weren't supposed to go on anything off that record yet. And so they got a call from whoever, maybe he's Universal. I don't know what label they were on anyway. We'd come back with all these records. And so we did this we did this very kind of, I don't know. I mean, at times I think I liked the direction of the second record, but I still think we were still kind of fumbling around and really not knowing our way. And by the third record's really solid, but I think we'd just forgotten who we were. Like it was.
So does that mean that you wish going back to that era that you would have taken more time figuring
No,
out?
no, I think we took too much time. I think it was, maybe having too much time
Made you confused as to
and
what to
having to
do, or
think,
made you
yeah, and
think too much?
having to think too much and think, okay, well,
I hate when that.
who's our audience, instead of going, we're our audience.
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah,
audience.
yeah. Yes, that's true.
And I think that was the big mistake.
Yeah, trying
You
to
know,
please others instead of doing what was in your heart.
and yeah, and I think too, like, Kurt brought something to the band that was a real intangible beyond what was musical. Where Kurt and I would sit and we'd discuss lyrics, and we would sit and talk about what a song could be about, and and Kurt could conceptualize those things, and sort of help steer the ship. And then he left the band, and then when Brad Booker came in, it could I look back, it's another thing, it's like Brad brought something very different musically to the band that we never got an opportunity to play with. And and so it's like, ooh, I'd like to have seen how he kind of came in midstream, and at that point I think we were I don't know where I was. I don't know, I was in the middle of going to therapy once a week, and there was all this crazy stuff going on in my life. So I think maybe we just had too much time. I don't know. I just don't feel like the last record, it was sort of it's okay, let's do some music. And I don't know, it wasn't necessarily tapping into me, except lyrically. It's a very honest record, lyrically, but musically it just wasn't, it wasn't, I don't know. I don't think it really hit what the four of us at that point could have been. And so that bothers me a little bit if I look back and go, it'd have been, maybe strip it back somehow. Like, you start thinking about things that you were listening to maybe within a year or two after that record came out and the band had broken up. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Where this sort of, this synth pop sort of revival thing started happening, where things were kind of stripped back, and they were still dark, but it was like, and I think, golly, I was starting to listen to those things already as we were making this Gravity record, but I wasn't listening to myself anymore. I think I was just trying to make a record for who I thought would listen, based on a body of work, not just in the studio, but on stage, who I thought that fan base was. And I think it's a huge mistake.
That's a shame.
Because if you're going to go down, it's like, if you've watched, there's a Rush documentary, there's a couple, but and one in particular, when they made 2112, they were just like, after they did a record that didn't do very well, and they're like, we're going to do 2112, and if we go down, we're just going to go down swinging. And they made this crazy record that catapulted them into, from playing to not many people, to playing arenas. And not saying that could have ever happened to us, but I just feel like,
but you don't know.
You wasted an opportunity.
Yeah.
And and it was for a lot of reasons. I think, we were a precursor to, to people getting caught up in social media and being, way too sensitive to what's coming at you versus what you're putting out there.
Well, I think, I mean, there's so many reasons why I think you guys weren't in a position to grow any further. And a lot of that has to do with this was, there were changes in music anyway, which happens, it's cyclical anyway, but there was also, it was also, Steve knew at that time that, the label was about to be no more. He had to have known then. He's never said to me, Lori, I'm going to screw your band because I can't keep up with the label and I'm having money issues. But that's ultimately what happened. And I think when things like that happen, it's really hard to go to another label or, kind of fix something that's, I mean, you guys did go to another label, but it's kind of hard to pick up where you left off. I think as a rule, yes, there are exceptions, but I think as a rule, it was just a tough time to be on TBT.
Yeah, and I think after Tommy left, it never had anybody, because when you get, like Sean Roberts became our A&R guy for a while, and I love and adore Sean Roberts if he ever sees this. But I don't think Sean felt comfortable coming to us and saying, "Who the fuck are you?" I don't think.
No, he was too green. He was.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and I think that's at that point what we needed. I think you were too busy at that point trying to bail water out of the boat. And you had never really gotten involved in anything creative with the band anyway, and I always appreciated that. But I think but if there's going to be somebody who was going to do that, if they're going to call themselves an A&R, right,
was meant to do was meant to help you figure out, what your sound was, what your, who your audience is, and Sean just, again, was just way too green.
Yeah, and then Steve Gottlieb becomes our A&R person. And that's, and that was, we knew at that point that they didn't really know what to do with us anymore. It was, some people would take it as a compliment, like, oh, the owner of the label's now your A&R guy. It's like, no, that's like,
no thanks.
That's a bad, right. This is a bad omen. This is, because they obviously don't, there's nobody with any sense of vision, any vision for what the band,
hold on one second, I'm saying goodbye to somebody. Hang on. My sweetie, call me from Dallas. Bye. Yeah, and plus with Steve, I think Steve initially, like back in the 9 Inch Nails days, and even before, like one of his urban acts or whatever, I think he actually was not creative, but had a good sense of what could be. I think that he was a little ahead of his time, and I would initially, and then as he seems like the more successful he got, the less focus he had. And so no, having Steve as an A&R person was not a good idea.
Yeah, just so those are, that's, I mean, I think fundamentally overall that's, the regret that I have is, sort of not, and it's, it was Matt and Doug and I really, in the, Kurt did his thing and then bowed out, and I don't know that, Kurt was kind of the glue, because Kurt was Kurt knew how to sort of manage people.
Yeah, he did. And he was a really good sounding board across the board. He was, it's not like he was full of shit, but he did know what to say and to whom to say it.
Yeah.
He didn't, he was.
Yeah, and so without us having that, the three of us having that anymore, I mean, Doug and I always had a very abrasive relationship on and off. But that was good at times, and it was very bad at times.
Yeah.
And then, and Matt and I were always, Matt Matt Dudnapes is the nicest guy. I mean, he's just a nice person. And
super nice.
And I don't, and Matt just wanted to make things work. Matt was, where when it got down to the three of us, there wasn't, you'd see sort of, maybe.
That's his whole engineering mentality, is make it work.
Right. And so I think he would see this thing going on over here, and he would just, try to sort of help, help us emotionally navigate it as a, and so, I'm not blaming this on anybody. I mean, I'm, had a huge hand in writing the record, but I look back and we should have just stepped out of it and said, who are we? What do we want this record to sound like based on who we are and not who we were? And, because I think our fan base, I mean, there's still people's like, just, do something musically. And I sort of got into going with that. And then my father passed away this year, and that kind of flipped some things upside down a little bit. But, and not just emotionally, but I've been back and forth between here and Oklahoma City and St. Louis for about now, 4 months or whatever it's been. And, sort of dealing with that. And it's been like a full-time job, really, dealing with some of those things. And so I've kind of put that off. But I think Gravity Kills fans, we weren't a Wax Trax act where, those people, we were an act that I think people who listened to, we weren't a niche act necessarily early on. And so I think Gravity Kills fans would have, if we would have become a little bit more organic and still kept some electronic elements or whatever, or been super electronic.
They would have grown with you. They would have grown with you. They were the kind of audience that could grow in a different direction.
And I told the guys at one point, and I don't know how they took this, but I said, we never learned how to take the band where we wanted to go without radio.
But that's because that was your golden ticket. I mean, that's how you entered the business, on the radio. So again, it's so different than the way everybody else, they had their band and they got a van, and then they kind of traveled around and sold some CDs out of the boot of their van and did whatever, and was a live act, and hoped that someday they'd write a song that would break them and make it on the radio and be hugely successful. And you did it the wrong way. You did it so backwards that, there just was no choice. There was no choice for you to think any other way. You just couldn't, because that was really not just instilled in the way you were brought up as a band, but the way the business was at the time.
Yeah, but I think we could have taken steps to make the show evolve in ways, that.
I get that. I get what
that we just never did. Where all of a sudden, I don't need to hear a song on the radio because, I thought and look, and I could sing with anybody live. Biggest compliment I ever got was from a guy in Boston that somebody told him that my show was tracked, and I made him sit at the monitor desk. And anyway, it wasn't that. It was just, I don't know that we ever I felt like we never focused on the live show enough as well. If I'm gonna, we're sitting here talking about regrets or whatever.
Yeah.
We never focused on taking it from what it was to how can we make this evolve as well? How can we make the live show evolve? And, and again, I think it's from having success early, and what we were doing was working, and, and we never really focused on the live show. I mean,
I don't know how much you could have. With all due respect to everybody in the band, I don't know that was really what every individual was capable of doing at the time.
No, I agree.
So
yeah, I agree with that. I just wish we could have figured a way to make
that happen. Yeah, I get
make
it.
that happen.
I get
Whether
it.
it would have been, and I think maybe more success on the second record could have changed that, because we could have said, hey, let's add a member for a live show. Let's add, a utility guy who can play, play guitar, play keys, play bass, do whatever we need them to do. And we just never got, and maybe, sort of expand the live show. We're just, I'm just sitting here, I'm just sitting here talking. We're not, I'm not looking back going, oh, we sucked, or it's not, none of those things.
No. It was just,
it's just how you're right. I think if, you had asked the question, what could you have changed? I think it's something I would have changed, or, go back and, you don't have at the time, you can't see the future. But I think if we could have, by the time we got to the third record, if the show had evolved enough and we could have, you just never know. I mean, again, you just never know what any of that stuff means.
No.
But I look back on it and, and I remember all of it. And I think, golly, what an incredible ride. And it was so much fun. And there was a lot of pressure at times. And some days were, it was very difficult, or very, very difficult times as well. But I look back overall and was like, how lucky and amazing was any of that to get to go through. And it was awesome. And
I wish we could do it all over again. I'm saying we as if I was a band member.
Yeah.
But I wish I mean, because there's so many times I've sat here thinking, oh, well, if we did this, or what if we did this, or what if? And, and again, you've got new product now, well, new old product now, but it's, no, it just seems such a waste, because there was such great music, great songs, and yeah, you're a great front man and a great singer, and just sad.
And I think we hit during an era too, and it was also when you're, sort of leaping from, my daughter's walking in the door, leaping from everything being confined and held hostage on a CD that you would buy or whatever, and now all of a sudden Napster's out, and I can remember, we'd go in the studio and we'd listen to Napster. Oh, hey,
hi Willow.
And so we would, so it was, the entire, there was such a huge shift going on. And, because there's a lot of bands that came out, sort of in the iPod era that kind of came and went, like.
Do you think Willow's going, what on earth was an iPad?
No, yeah.
No, iPod.
She actually had one. She had an iPod Nano when she was little, just one of these little, but, there's some, She Wants Revenge to me is a band that, I thought was so cool in the, so the mid to, maybe the late 2000s. And somehow, it never escaped, the Bravery, or I could name all these bands. We kind of, it was we came up and the dinosaurs, were extinct, and then all of a sudden there was this new stuff, and then there was another meteor hit all of a sudden, and then streaming started, and a lot of those bands from, say, 2003 to 2010 in that era also sort of got trapped in this weird paradigm shift when people started streaming versus still buying things. Then some of those bands got trapped, and I think we kind of, we just never were able to break through into the iPod era for whatever reason. And, it just, it's interesting
and here
to me
we are.
that I think about, and I got really into that era of bands for a while. And I don't know what it was, maybe in my head I was thinking, oh, well, I wish that we would have sort of made it over the hump and then been one of those bands, and then, okay, we didn't make it into the next hump, but, we would have had, say, a 15-year career with the band or whatever, and walked away and gone, woo. But, we were, we, as you say, it was lightning in a bottle. And we had, we went from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in 12 months. And, because I just posted the Guilty video on the band's Facebook page, and
Oh, cool.
and the song had debuted, on that first Point Essential CD, and you just think about that whole first year that the band was together. I mean, from not being a band to being a band, and you're already on, you're playing your first show. I mean, all the stuff that we talked about the first time around, and I don't know how it could have happened, any quicker, or with more. I don't know how a band that was nothing could have more impact in such a shorter period of time.
No,
And
I don't
so I'm
either.
proud of that.
Yeah.
And I don't look back on that with regret. We got regrets, but I have.
No, it was a very special time, and it should always be, well appreciated and respected, because it was special, and it just, maybe things could have gone differently. Maybe, you could always do what if, and our time's running up, but you know what this means? It means there's going to be a 3. There's going to have to be a part 3.
All right, well, we can do that.
You have so many stories, and your memory is unbelievable. I have to show you this too. I'm wearing a glove, so in case you wondered, I have a messed up finger from
what'd you do?
Somebody smashed it in the door. Well, a door closed on it, and I'm kind of over 3 months into it, and anyway, it's kind of gross. So I'm keeping a Band-Aid and a glove, and I'm just keeping it well guarded. So just in case you were wondering if I was doing my best Michael Jackson
social
impression.
distancing.
Yeah.
We could just go into just telling stories. I mean, I did that
forever.
Right.
And just hope other people appreciate them as much as I do, because I love these stories.
And the best story I'll only tease it, was, if I didn't tell it before, was Southside Seaport in New York City.
Okay, write that down so you don't forget.
I won't forget it, because you were there and you kept me from going to jail.
Okay, that's starting our next one. Where's Willow?
Pardon? She's in a room.
Okay.
She's in the middle of finals, and so I think she's locked herself in a room.
I'll wait to hassle her the next one.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I'll send you a picture. I got a picture of
the dance.
I got a picture, not the dance, but I got a picture of her in her outfit.
Well, that's what I mean. Outfit, the dance night.
Her dress. Yeah.
Okay.
She grew up. I was like, where'd this woman come from?
Don't
anyway,
even.
I know.
Just still breaks my heart. All right. Bye. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
All right. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, and be sure to follow Gabbing with Girlfriends on here so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on social media for more fun and in-depth conversations. Thank you.